Hi everyone, Petrik here. In today's video, I'll be doing a spoiler-free book review of the newest book by Joe Abercrombie, which is not released yet. This is For the Devils by Joe Abercrombie. This is the newest book in his upcoming series, which doesn't take place in the first law world. And before I get started, I want to make it clear that I fully understand that this book, it's still 8 months away before it's released. It is going to be released in May 2025. So if you are already keen and very confident that you want to read The Devils, you don't have to watch this review, okay? Just jump into it and I guarantee you, you will have a blast reading The Devils when the time comes. But if you want to know more about it, and I would try my best to give you my opinion as spoiler-free as possible. So with The Devils, many of you know that I have been struggling with reading epic fantasy. Well, not struggling, but I have been struggling with finding a 5-star epic fantasy book. But now, after 9 months this year, I finally found my first 5-star epic fantasy novel, and it is For the Devils by Joe Abercrombie. It is devilishly brilliant, easily the best fantasy book that I've read this year so far. So believe me when I say that I felt highly elated when I received the advanced reading copy of The Devils. It has been 3 years since The Wisdom of Crowds, the last book by Joe Abercrombie that I read, and that was the last book in the Edge of Madness trilogy, and currently the final book in the First Law world until Joe Abercrombie decided to continue that world again, continue to write more books in that world. And with that in mind, it has also been 13 months since I rated 5 stars to another epic fantasy novel. And with that in mind, the 5 stars rating and the Joe Abercrombie drought has been given water to live. And because I haven't read the Shattered Sea trilogy, this marked the first time I read anything by Joe Abercrombie that doesn't take place in the First Law world. And I think I, like many of you and many other future readers, will approach this novel expecting the brilliance and the greatness of the First Law world. And I think you will get them in The Devils. However, do not approach The Devils expecting you will get the same tone and narrative that you get in the First Law world. It is slightly different from that. By its nature, The Devils retains Abercrombie's stronger skill as a storyteller while making sure that he make this book more fun, more action-packed, and somehow more accessible to newcomer to his work. It is still greedy, violent, but it is inherently, in my opinion, it is more fun, hilarious, and as I said, action-packed. Plus, as crazy as this sounds, The Devils contain a very prominent found family aspect written by Joe Abercrombie. So what's The Devils about? As Europe stares into the abyss and plague and famine stalk the land, while monsters lurk in every shadow and greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions, only one thing is certain: the elves will come again and they will eat everyone. Now, the hapless brother Diaz must somehow bind the worst of the worst to a higher cause, to put a thief, Alex, on the throne of Troy and unite the Sundered Church against the coming apocalypse. To achieve this, brother Diaz and Alex will be accompanied by the Devils, a congregation of convicted monsters that guarantees every mission turns into a disastrous bloodbath. It is mandatory to fight devils with devils. The result: this insane quest successfully led Abercrombie to hit another glorious home run with The Devils. As I said earlier, although it is entirely accurate to assess The Devils as another greedy and dark tale from our beloved Lord Grimdark, the main themes of The Devils is about the meaning of the soul, redemption, sense of longing, hope, faith, and found family. The way I would perceive or advertise The Devils to the First Law readers would be to imagine this as Best of Cold, but the crew comprised of an unlikely found family of vicious, damaged, hilarious, and charismatic characters. Most importantly, most of these characters are inherently kind-hearted characters trying to do good. Not all, but most. There were definitely some nods to Logan Ninefingers as well, and time will tell whether these characters will reach the Hall of Fame status the characters of the First Law series such as Logan Ninefingers, Sandan Glokta, Bias, Shivers, and many more gained. But hey, As Logan often says, Abercrombie is still alive. We're only one book into the series. In The Devils, Abercrombie already effectively proved the myriad number of storytelling knives he wields are still deadly sharp and precise toward the target of writing great characters, dialogues, and actions. I feel it is truly a gift and a curse to have read many amazing epic fantasy books. It means it gets harder now to find great epic fantasy books. That's why I still haven't found any 5 stars book for epic fantasy until I read The Devils this year. And after I read The Devils, I've come to realize just how good I had it when I was reading books written by Joe Abercrombie and others that can nail characterizations and distinct inner thoughts and voices as good as he does. The characters in The Devils, they are so lovable in my opinion. They all have their own strengths, flaws, and baggage. Really, if we're talking about distinct character voices, I think Joe Abercrombie is really close to being unparalleled in the fantasy genre. Balthazar Ivan Draxi would actually say that he is one of the 3 greatest authors in that regard in Europe. I had an absolute blast reading The Devils, and you will understand if you are the fan of the First Law series, then you will understand that one of the main reasons behind this is the extremely well-written characters. Now, your miles may vary here, and it is definitely undeniable that some characters in the crew of the Devils receive more spotlight than the others, such as Jacob the Thorn, Brother Diaz, and also Princess Alex, or the thief Alex, and then Balthazar Ivan Draxi, and Sunny. I think among all the characters, these characters receive the most spotlight, and of course it is easy for me to say that Jacob the Thorn and Balthazar are my favorite characters in the book so far. Well, in the series so far, to be more precise. We'll see how it goes in the second and probably third book. I assume this is a trilogy. One of the things that made The Devils more accessible, in my opinion, for many other future readers and also newcomers to Abercrombie's work is that the found family aspect. These characters, even though they are the Devils, they are trying to do good. They are trying to redeem for their past. Redemption is really one of the key themes of The Devils here. This is our Lord Grimdark writing an epic fantasy novel about a cowardly monk, and then a thief, and then a cursed knight, a geriatric vampire, a narcissistic magician, an invisible elf, a pirate, and also a werewolf. Seriously, it is just so damn fun. Their dialogues are so engaging, their banters are hilarious. Following the journey of these characters across all hell on earth were really delightful, addictive, and brimming with laugh out loud moments. There were seriously some truly funny scenes here. But this is not to say that The Devil is merely a simple and hilarious and comedic book. This is not the case. It won't be an Abercrombie book without the incredible and gripping action sequence, won't it? And well, you will certainly get them in The Devils. This is definitely an action-packed novel. Every part in this book, there are 4 parts, and every part in this book definitely ended with a super awesome action sequence. They are bloody, they're violent, they're so vivid in my mind and cinematic, just like what you would expect from reading Abercrombie's writing. It has been that way since the Blade itself, and it is still true in The Devils. The last 80 pages were one of the biggest battle sequence that I have ever read from Joe Abercrombie, and I believe that's saying a lot considering how big the battles in the Heroes were. And really, the spectacles, and there were some truly stunning descriptions on the vistas in The Devil, such as the Holy City, and then Venice and Troy. I will leave that to you to find out for yourself. I believe this is something that readers should experience. The impact is something that readers should experience themselves. And I don't know, some of you might not like it, but I completely loved it. There were no dull moments when I was reading The Devils. I'm starting to miss that feeling when I'm reading an epic fantasy novel. It's not often I felt totally glued to reading an epic fantasy novel now, or maybe I'm just in the streak of bad lucks with the books that I'm reading this year. Not saying that the books that I'm reading were full of bad books or something, but nothing kind of reached the greatness of the 5 stars books that I usually found. But this time, I finally found it again, and I am truly happy about it. And seriously, I cannot wait to read the second book as soon as possible. I am blessed to have read this book early, but I am also cursed with waiting for the second book longer. But it is a pain that I'm willingly to pay. I'm willing to pay the price for the pain of waiting for the next book. I couldn't wait any longer. If you have received the advanced reading copy of The Devils, I believe that you will want to jump into it as soon as possible. And anyway, but to close this review, I think Abercrombie deals only in absolute, and I had an absolute blast reading The Devils. It is absolutely amazing, and it was the utterly immersive, compelling, and magnificent fantasy book that I desperately needed, especially this year. The Devils is easily one of my favorite books of all time. My God, it feels good to say that. I haven't said that to any book within this year. One of my favorite fantasy books of all time, because the books that made it to my list of favorite fantasy books this year, most of them are really science fiction and science fantasy novels, such as the Sun Eater series. But The Devils definitely reached that point. But I don't think that will come as a surprise. Many of you who have been following my channel or my reviews since 2016, you will know how much I love Joe Abercrombie's writing, his storytelling, and really his books. It really fits my reading taste. The Devils is pretty much a legal dose of joyful adrenaline rush. In the same way as how the First Law trilogy, the original First Law trilogy, helped spark my love for reading the fantasy genre, I think The Devils has kind of reignited my passion and also make me remember why I cherish the genre in the first place. If you are, for whatever reasons, unsure about reading The Devils, well, do not worry. I have no doubt that The Devils will be suitable to newcomers to Abercrombie's work and also to a long-time fans of the First Law world. I loved it very much. The Devils signals the return of one of the masters in the fantasy genre. Pre-order this book. You won't regret it. Enrich your reading life next year. And yeah, that's really pretty much it for my spoiler-free book review of The Devils. There are so many things that I would still like to say about this book, because it is awesome. It's really good. It's about 200,000 words long, and I never felt bored reading The Devils. It was just that good. But at the same time, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I fully realized that it is still 8 months before the publication of this book, and I want to make sure that this review is as spoiler-free as possible and as effective for newcomers to Joe Abercrombie especially. And yeah, I do strongly recommend this book. It is easily right now, at this moment, the best fantasy book that I read in the year 2024. And I'm pretty sure I will do a second read, multiple read of The Devils, as more books will be out in the series. And yeah, I think that's really pretty much it for me today. Do let me know whether you are a fan of the First Law series or not, or whether you haven't read any of Joe Abercrombie's book and you find yourself more interested in this one than the First Law. I think, as I said, this is more accessible than the First Law series, and it is worth giving your time and commitment to reading The Devils next year. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.